For thousands of years, humanity has raised its eyes toward the sky with a ceaseless wonder, observing those mysterious objects that never cease to appear on our horizon, traversing our skies in dead silence, as if whispering a secret we have failed to decode for centuries. In this documentary, we will step far away from the Hollywood stereotypes. We shall set aside the tales of little green men and the metallic spaceships we've grown accustomed to in science fiction. Instead, we will go behind the scenes to face the naked truth by gathering the contradictory shapes of these objects like scattered puzzle pieces, analyzing their physical properties and their strange behavior that defies all known laws of flight. We will re-examine eyewitness testimonies in an unprecedented way to discover that what we have been seeing all along might not be machines from another world, but something entirely different. Perhaps the most staggering truth lies in the fact that we never needed to look to distant stars for the answer. For while our eyes were fixed on the heights, these secrets were surrounding us all along, hidden in places so close we never dared to link them to the sky. Everything that might seem strange to you about the forms and behaviors of these celestial objects will, in the end, seem perfectly logical. So let's come together, gather the pieces of the puzzle, and solve the riddle. The first shape is that of transparent or glowing balls, which sometimes appear alone and sometimes gather in an organized formation, moving with a conscious and intelligent will. The ancients recorded seeing these heavenly spheres, their arrival and return to the sky, and they believed they were the souls of the dead or beings from the jinn. They still appear to people to this day and are called by different names, such as ball lightning, or, among Arabs, the genie lantern. Pilots in the world wars recorded seeing these spheres and that they were playing around and interacting with their planes.
Commercial pilots draw a sketch of the flying saucer they both saw while piloting a plane between Little Rock and Memphis. Here's the strange story. Believe it or not.
We feel definitely that it was a controlled aircraft of some type. Don't you think so?
I think it had to be. What was the first thing that really drew your attention to it being probably a flying saucer, Jack?
Well, the circular pattern of lights that were arranged under what I term the underneath side of the ship as it passed in front of us and across our path. I'm not inclined to believe that it's anything that from some far-off place, some planet. I am of the opinion that we will know what this disc or saucer is in the near future.
Yeah.
So what did they look like then?
They were just like orange, yellowy footballs.
Yeah.
They were glowing. A yellow, little bit of orange coming into it. And all of a sudden they were following us, and we dived and they followed us. We twisted, we climbed, and they followed us.
So it was just as though they were intelligent then, and they seemed to know by changing direction.
I mean, they were in control.
Yes.
And after, you saw that after 50 miles, and we lost 14,000 feet of height, they started to fade away.
Yes.
But at times they put on extra speed, and when they sort of, they're going along, and when they did that, there was sparks, things coming out of the tails. Or behind them.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Then suddenly two vanish, and I mean vanish. Blue sky, I vanish. And the time to say 1, 2, 3, make a long circle with crashing green, blue, red, everything on the back, pass between us and the mountain like a lightning, and went zigzag and disappeared. When he passed, I had a green light in my cockpit, a matter of a fraction of a second.
There were sailors on ships. There were GIs on the ground in artillery battalions. There were German soldiers on the other side of the line. People from all sides of the war were involved. and reported the same thing.
The next shape is that of saucers with defined rims, or flying discs, which the ancients described as resembling the shields of warriors. Their appearance is recorded in ancient artifacts, and they still appear in the modern age to ordinary people and pilots, and they are considered one of the most famous shapes of celestial objects ever.
Listen to this account by a Roman soldier written in 98 AD. At sunset, a burning shield passed over the sky at Rome. It sparkled from the west and passed to the east. This description was written in 216 BC. At Apari, east of Rome, a round shield was seen in the sky.
One of the most famous shapes of celestial objects is the oval shape with undefined edges, which seems to change while it moves. Reports say that this object is sometimes seen with something like a tail. And this particular shape is considered one of the fastest celestial objects moving through our atmosphere. It is the same one that appeared in a public video shown by the Air Force in a U.S. Congress hearing in 2022 as an admission of the existence of these objects.
On September 30th, 1870, the London Times published this article. The object was elliptical in shape with a kind of tail. It crossed the moon from one side to the other in half a minute. This picture was taken in Switzerland over 100 years after that report. We are showing you this film at 1/2 its original speed. This unidentified flying object was photographed by James Waters. As we slow the film, you can see that the UFO appears to change shape from frame to frame.
The third type of celestial object is the cigar shapes, or elongated columns, which are sometimes pointed at the ends and sometimes cylindrical or rectangular. The ancients described their appearance as resembling columns or glowing towers in the sky.
At that point, we could see what was a cigar shape. And there was 4 lights in there. So we were all wondering what this was. There was this cigar shape, and within that cigar shape you could see the sort of 4 lights, which we knew were lights at this point.
For 20 minutes, father and daughter watched the amazing sight, believing that the object in the sky was aware of their presence.
No kind of aircraft, I'll tell you that. Oh, no.
Overwhelming feelings came over me. It almost looked like we were looking into a transparent cloud or something, into another space or dimension. The light wasn't radiating from it. It wasn't reflecting sunlight. It was like its own energy.
In looking through the old newspapers here at the Mountain Mail, I saw a reference to a mysterious airship. The 1917 sighting quoted all of these credible people as having seen this thing, cigar-shaped thing in the sky.
We observed it over 1 minute on the left of our plane, surprisingly totally stationary in the sky, and it disappeared progressively.
It was a cigar-shaped object, like a symmetrical airfoil with a dome on it. It was a solid object. It was a metallic structure to it. And you could see lights reflecting off the structure, and you could not see any of the stars or behind the object itself.
Voilà, c'est exactement ça. Donc on va le revoir sous différents plans, mais ça paraît hallucinant. Vous êtes, voilà, c'est ça. C'est effectivement, quand vous dites un paquebot, ça semble.
Et quand vous êtes derrière un canon, je vous assure, c'est vrai, vous voyez partir l'obus. Vous êtes derrière, vous voyez un petit point noir qui part.
The pointed cigar-shaped objects are the bottoms of the boats of the gods or the righteous, just as European peasants believed they were the boats of evil heavenly beings coming from a mythical city called Magonia. Another important observation in sightings of elongated cigar-shaped objects is that sometimes objects shaped like spheres are seen inside them, to the point that some people imagined that these spheres were the heads of the beings piloting the craft. As we progress in our research, we'll know the explanation of these spheres. This cigar shape, or these giant towers in the sky, appears in different sizes, some small, some as big as a bus, and some enormous, like the object 3I Atlas and Oumuamua that entered our solar system and moved through it with a self-directed intelligent motion. And NASA could not present clear images of either of them. At the time of Oumuamua's passage in 2017, they said they didn't manage to capture it in time, and during the passage of 3I Atlas in 2025, there just happened to be a government shutdown.
We didn't think that Oumuamua had any of those volatiles, those gases on it, but apparently it did. As it went away from the sun, it changed its trajectory just a little bit. But it has a completely different shape. We've never seen anything in our solar system that looks like this. It's about 1/4 of a mile long. And it's actually elongated like a cigar. And it's actually elongated like a cigar, like a cigar, like a cigar.
Among the most famous shapes of celestial objects is the glowing triangle, whose edges or sides glow, or which glows from the center, moving with an intelligent, self-directed motion.
We were on the way home from Las Vegas, about a half mile from where we're standing at the moment.
I just happened to look out the rear view mirror and just saw something coming up from behind us. And it looked like it wasn't
Normal.
And I kept saying, what the hell is that?
And this thing floated above our heads, doing about 30 miles an hour.
That's a good word, float. Yeah.
Floated, yeah, it floated. Or had to have been defying gravity, or it was a lighter than aircraft. I don't know. But it was triangular. It was monstrous. The moon and the stars went away, and there it was above us. And we stood and watched it go across the valley and head toward the mountains.
And while I was there, it was in 1971, I noticed, there it is, just sitting there in the sky, was this triangular object. And it was just, I could see the tree, the lights of the street reflected on. So it was above the tree line, just above my house. And I couldn't understand what it was because it didn't move. It was just standing there. It was not hovering. It was nothing. It was just there. And there was no noise. Absolute quiet. All of a sudden, it went boom to the right. And it just disappeared. I was speechless. And I called and I talked to somebody in the tower. And he said, nothing has been in and out of the airport in the last 15 minutes. But please give me your address and your phone number so we can reach you and talk about this some more. And I did. And about 3 days later, I got from the U.S. government, big manila envelope, this many papers in it. It was a questionnaire, a very detailed questionnaire about what I had seen. Could I identify the shape? Which I could. It was there. There were no pictures of it, but there was a drawing of it. And they had cigar shapes and round ones and all kinds of different shapes. Triangular, it was there. So I was supposed to describe my experience in a lot of detail because it was many, many pages. I filled it out right away, sent it back, and never heard from them again.
It was triangular shaped and there were rectangular reflectors. There was no interior light coming out of it at all. And by the time it got out of sight, I bet it was 5 to 8 minutes. It was really slow. And I couldn't figure out how it was staying in the air.
White called the police, who connected her to Nellis Air Force Base, which is the direction the triangle seemed headed.
And the man said, I don't want you to talk about this anymore. You're not going to talk about this anymore and you're going to forget it. And once again, I said, look, Betty, I'm not drinking. I'm not on drugs. Something is headed for your base. And then he got really terse and he said, ma'am, I'm going to tell you one more time. And this is the last time I'm going to tell you. You will forget what you saw and you won't tell anybody.
I looked up first and I saw this massive, great big black triangle sitting in there. And it wasn't, it seemed to be absorbing the light. You could see it against the light pollution, this thing. It was the size of it, it's massive, it was like a great big football field.
So it was blacker than the surrounding sky?
It was blacker than the sky.
Right.
That's how we could see it.
Glowing crosses of different shapes and sizes, whose appearance was recorded by the ancients and considered a Christian divine sign, are in reality just another kind of celestial object, as we will see.
I've drawn this object many times since I saw it, and it was an oval inside of an oval. It was a very definite shape. It was about 40 feet long, and I say this because the house is about 50 feet long, and it made no noise. It was completely silent, and I could see no visible entries or windows or doors, as we would call it. The only logical explanation that I can come up with is that it was a flying object of some sort that could hover, and such as I've never seen before.
Well, the object was likened unto a cross.
Consul Willie just said, "Here we go then," and we drove off after it, if you know what I mean. We were travelling very fast.
No sound that I heard at all. There was no outside noise apart from the noise of the car itself.
And the acceleration away from us was terrific. So really, we didn't get under it to hear any sound.
There is also the cone shape, mentioned in ancient Indian myths, and they called it Vimana, believing it to be the chariots of the gods. This is a modern visualization of the Vimana by researchers who imagined it as a spacecraft based on Hindu texts, describing it as cone or funnel-shaped. In the myths, the ancient Indians called this body the Pushpaka Vimana, to distinguish its form from the rest of the Vimanas or other celestial objects.
The first call came into Bendigo's 3BO radio station just after 11 o'clock, and by the time announcer John Davis arrived to start his midnight to dawn shift, the phones were running hot with reports. People from as far away as Maryborough, Kyneton and Castlemaine saw the lights. The most consistent reports were that they changed colour frequently, that they stayed virtually hovering high up in the sky, and that they appeared to have a conical shape. One man who phoned 3BO said the shapes looked like honeycomb when seen through his high-powered telescope.
And multi-rayed shapes. There is also the egg shape. Many pilots have reported seeing a glowing egg flying in the sky, and the arc shape, where the celestial object appears as a crescent-shaped arc. Sometimes it is a crescent swollen in the middle, like the one Kenneth Arnold reported and drew in 1947. Two merged spheres resembling a peanut. The late U.S. President Jimmy Carter is the most famous person to report seeing this celestial body, and he himself stated that he saw in the sky a glowing object that looked like a peanut. During his election campaign in the 70s, he promised he would open the files of mysterious objects to the American people and reveal all their secrets, but after he won and became president, he never mentioned this subject again. Then there is the shape of celestial snakes, or worms, glowing forms which inspired the ancients with the idea of dragons or flying fiery serpents mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I think it's an alien.
This mysterious object was filmed over East London in June 2003.
There's I see a UFO behind it, an orb, right behind that one. Wow, that's the first time I get something like this here.
There is also the shape of overlapping or irregular bubbles that change their shape while moving.
Turning now to a mystery mass that has been fascinating both North Philadelphia and us here in the newsroom today. 6 ABC viewer Hector Garcia shot this video near 7th and Tioga Streets yesterday afternoon. See it there? A fast-moving clear blob floating across the skyline. We even sent the video to our friends at AccuWeather with no hard explanation on this one. So technically speaking, the blob is an unidentified flying object, or UFO.
UFO mystery over the Nevada desert, and this time pictures of the strange objects were captured by none other than the U.S. Air Force.
This is no home video. These pictures were taken by a sophisticated military tracking system, and it's got operators baffled.
I don't know. Another look at the secret Air Force tape. Notice how the object continues upward and seems to change shape.
And also the startling thing is it seems to change shape.
Another anomalous characteristic of the object is its apparent ability to change shape instantaneously.
The physical profile of the object changes almost frame to frame. Sometimes it appears almost to be a fuzzy, gassy cloud. In some portions of the video, it appears to be several spherical objects surrounding a dark mass.
Then there is the jellyfish or octopus form with glowing tentacles, mentioned in ancient Sanskrit texts, and by some pilots, and by the astronomer Bonilla in his famous Bonilla observation. Thus we have gathered the most prominent and famous shapes of mysterious celestial objects. And what remains is to think about their nature. Are these objects really spacecraft coming from other planets? And why are there so many shapes of them? Dozens of shapes and hundreds of sizes of the same general form? Does that mean there are multiple civilizations and not just one? And if there are that many, why has not even one of these civilizations tried to communicate with us directly? And if NASA is able to observe the Earth as a sphere from space or from outside, why hasn't it been able to detect and determine from which directions these objects come, especially when reports of sightings number in the thousands every year? So many questions make the hypothesis of spaceships from other planets a weak and illogical one, without real support in most of its aspects. This leaves us with another hypothesis, stranger but stronger, supported by the behavior and actions of these objects themselves. In 1997, Captain Uirangue Holanda of the Brazilian Air Force gave a television interview in which he decided to talk about a military operation he himself took part in, as a member of a team of 8 people tasked with investigating and exploring strange incidents that had occurred in late 1977 on Colares Island in the state of Pará. The local inhabitants of the island, most of whom were fishermen, reported intense activity and repeated appearances of these celestial objects. Some even reported being attacked by them, and hospitals were indeed receiving victims, to the extent that 2 women actually died as a result of these encounters with the celestial objects. Reports say that when these objects approached people with their intense light, they caused numbness and sometimes complete paralysis, leaving burn marks or stings on their bodies, similar to iodine burns or jellyfish stings. The victims likened the pain of these wounds to the prick of needles, and they felt as though their blood had been sucked out through these wounds, without the celestial objects even touching them. That is why they called these objects chupa chupa, which in the local language means burn suckers. This state of paralysis would come over the victims as soon as the celestial objects approached them. Captain Holanda stated that he himself saw some of these objects on Colares Island. He described them precisely and drew illustrations of them. Disc-shaped objects, egg-shaped objects, and objects like an American football, and the strangest of them was an object shaped like a giant oil barrel.
Formas que a gente nem imaginava que pudéssemos impressionar a emoção com essa forma.
Esses objetos vistos, qual era o padrão mais comum quanto à forma? Quais padrões apareciam, foram constatados por você?
Era como se fosse, e mais ou menos do tamanho de um tambor de óleo de 200 litros. Essa sonda voava com um voo irregular, ela não tinha um voo seguro, ela voava como se estivesse balançando. Ela emitia luz, e às vezes andava uma ou duas juntas.
He was later found hanged in his house by his own belt less than 5 months after giving this TV interview. And to understand the importance of what Captain Hollanda did, and the brave decision he made, and paid for so dearly, when he did this interview, he leaked to the channel some photos of the objects that he had kept personally. After his death, people did not believe he had committed suicide, and there was popular pressure on the government, which was eventually forced, between 2004 and 2005, to release dozens of sketches and photographs taken of the objects in Colaris. And these are photos of 2 celestial objects I want you to look at carefully. You will find along their edges something like tiny threads or fine cilia. This is a very important point that we will return to later. Notice that one of these hairy objects is the same oval, undefined edge object that is classified as the fastest celestial object launching through our atmosphere, and we previously showed pictures and videos of it. The Colaris incident in Brazil is not the only case that mentioned humans suffering paralysis and burns when certain celestial objects approached them, but it is the most prominent and famous.
The object lit up the surrounding pine woods like it was daylight. I was burning, my skin was burning, and I was too sick to work the next day. My eyes swelled closed and welts appeared on my face and head. I thought I was going to die. Vicky came and took me to the emergency room of the hospital. They treated me like a burn patient. Over the next few days, I kept losing big patches of skin on my face, and about half my hair fell out.
We have effects on witnesses, such as the witnesses suffering what appears to be a sunburn effect on their face, neck, and hand.
Another behavior that can lead us to their true nature is that these objects sometimes descend onto farmland, absorb all the water in the soil, and leave the area where they landed extremely dry.
We find imprints left evidently by the landing gear of the object, some of these indicating tremendous pressure, great weight.
No matter how vivid a hallucination is, it cannot dehydrate soil. 80% of the descriptions of a UFO in Ted Phillips' files are of a disc-shaped object between 10 and 35 feet in diameter.
These are soil samples taken from 5 recent UFO landing sites.
This is a small portion of the soil taken from a UFO landing site in Delphos, Kansas. The soil in the UFO landing ring is extremely dehydrated and is unable to absorb water. Instead, it simply floats. Soil taken only a few feet away that was not part of the UFO landing ring behaved normally.
The strange behaviors of celestial objects do not stop at causing paralysis and burns and sucking up water from the soil. They go even stranger. We find, for example, celestial objects that split by themselves into 2 identical forms, as if this were a kind of reproduction.
What makes this video so special is that it comes straight from a $1 million infrared camera mounted on a government plane. And this is what they see. Then it heads out over the ocean where it does something truly unexpected. The object seems to splash down in the water before re-emerging seconds later. Even more bizarre, the object then splits into 2 separate craft.
Oh, what the hell? That is interesting right there. Wow. Wow. Oh my God.
And in November 2014, a helicopter in Chile detected, near the capital Santiago, two overlapping celestial objects emitting a gaseous material similar to clouds.
And when he points his camera, this is what he captures. Two large overlapping orbs. Check it out. They're moving in unison. Then look, the objects seem to release a plume of some sort.
The Pentagon showed a video of the U.S. Air Force firing a Hellfire missile at a celestial object flying near the coast of Yemen. Instead of the celestial object exploding, we find that two smaller objects bud off from it and continue flying along with the original object quite simply.
The newly released video captured by a U.S. Reaper drone shows a glowing orb off the coast of Yemen. Suddenly, on the left side of your screen, you see a Hellfire missile zip in, strike that unidentified object, then bounce right off it. When we slow the video down, you see the Hellfire missile continue to travel on its path, that trajectory becoming clearer from this zoomed-out angle. Not shown is a second Reaper drone that launched the missile. Congressman Eric Burleson shared the video at a House Oversight Committee on what the military calls unidentified aerial phenomena, better known as UFOs.
That's a Hellfire missile smacking into that UFO and just bounced right off. And it kept going.
It kept going, and it looks like the debris was taken with it.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
Some of which glow by themselves, as we saw, and some of which, apparently, are made of a material that receives light and reflects it in a dazzling and efficient way, while the same bright glowing object, if captured from other camera angles, may appear invisible or completely dark. We have proof of this, a mysterious celestial object photographed at the same time from two different places. One person filmed it from the side of the sun, where the object appeared extremely bright and luminous. Another person filmed the same object from the opposite side of the sun, where it appeared as a dull gray. The video shows an oval object, like a saucer or disc, from which small spheres emerge and follow it. And by the way, this strange scene is one you will see echoed in a carving very similar to it in one of the French caves. The carving dates back to more than 10,000 years before Christ, which means that prehistoric people may have seen this same strange celestial event.
Look in the center how the big UFO is spinning and at the same time releasing two rows of spheres.
Little spheres come around and go around the object, like recognizing the mother. This is the second video.
By Alfredo Carrillo. Look.
Releasing so many.
Yeah.
You see, it's in the opposite direction, and now they look black.
So we have objects that divide and reproduce by themselves and secrete organic substances, behaviors that are much closer to the behavior of living organisms than to that of metallic saucers carrying aliens. The idea that the upper layers of the air are inhabited by living beings is not new. It was mentioned by some of the ancients, such as Lucius Apuleius of the 2nd century AD, who says in his book, De Deo Socrates, and I quote, "Will the air that stretches in the vast space between earth and sky be left empty and abandoned by inhabitants? If you think carefully, birds are not the true inhabitants of the air, for in the end, they are earthly creatures seeking their comfort and food on the ground. They only penetrate the lower air from time to time. Reason dictates that this vast space is not empty, but that there are airy animals in it, thin and rarely seen by the human eye." End of Apuleius's words. Despite how strange this idea is, a few scholars across time have believed in it, such as the famous Swiss physician and philosopher Paracelsus of the 16th century, who believed in the existence of these beings and wrote a definition of them in his book, Liber de Nymphis, saying, in the upper layers of the atmosphere, live subtle beings called sylphs. They live in the air as fish live in water. For them, the air is not a void, but a tangible medium, and thus they move through it quickly and freely. They are not harmed by falling, because the air carries them just as water carries fish. The Quranic texts also point to this same strange idea of beings and creatures that live in the heavens, moving freely there, sometimes descending into our atmosphere and then returning to the sky. Praise be to Allah, to whom belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. To Him belongs all praise in the hereafter, and He is the wise, the all-aware. He knows what penetrates into the earth and what emerges from it, and what descends from the sky and what ascends therein, and He is the merciful, the forgiving. And among His signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and what He has scattered in them of living creatures, and He is able to gather them whenever He wills. To Allah prostrates whatever is in the heavens, and whatever is on the earth of creatures, and the angels, and they are not arrogant. He is the one who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then established Himself over the throne. He knows what penetrates into the earth, and what comes out of it, and what descends from the sky, and what ascends therein. And He is with you, wherever you are, and Allah is seeing of what you do. If we continue along this path, that these celestial objects are nothing but living beings, then an important question surfaces. To which group or class of living creatures do these beings belong exactly? The truth is, what can answer this question for us very clearly is one of the most famous and strangest incidents of mysterious celestial sightings. It occurred in the Soviet Union in 1977, on September 20th, specifically at 4 a.m., over the city of Petrozavodsk. Thousands of witnesses from the city and neighboring towns saw a giant jellyfish glowing and swimming in the sky. The jellyfish hovered above the city for some minutes, then swam upward and disappeared. It was so huge that witnesses saw it from other countries like Finland and Denmark. Despite being very far up in the sky, witnesses estimated its size as being like a football stadium. That means the real size of the object might reach half the size of an entire city. The magnitude of the incident and the large number of people who saw it reminds us of the verses of Surat Ash-Shu'ara, Ta Sin Mim. These are the verses of the clear book. Perhaps you would grieve yourself to death, because they will not be believers. If we willed, we could send down upon them a sign from the sky to which their necks would remain humbled. And no new reminder comes to them from the Most Merciful, but that they turn away from it. They have certainly denied, so the news of what they use to ridicule will come to them. All the witnesses and photographs taken of this object confirm that it was a giant jellyfish, swimming freely and with apparent will in the heavens. A jellyfish similar to the jellyfish that live in the Earth's oceans, but on a terrifying scale. Strangely, the Quranic text points us to the same logic. After talking about the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the creatures of the heavens and the earth, it gives us an important remark. Indeed, those who dispute concerning the signs of Allah without any authority having come to them, there is not within their breasts except pride. They will not attain it. So seek refuge in Allah. Indeed, it is He who is the hearing, the seeing. The creation of the heavens and the earth is greater than the creation of mankind, but most of the people do not know. So, are these celestial objects in reality sea creatures, but enlarged hundreds or thousands of times? Can we apply the same concept to the rest of the celestial objects? Can we find marine organisms that resemble the sphere, the egg, the peanut, the cigar, the saucers, the snakes, and the other forms?
سقفا محفوظا وهم عن آياتها معرضون وهو الذي خلق الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر كل في فلك يسبحون.
And we made the sky a protected ceiling, yet they, from its signs, turn away. And he is the one who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. Each in an orbit swims. All the celestial objects that have been recorded and photographed throughout history are nothing but microscopic marine creatures magnified in size and speed thousands of times, like the Petrozavodsk jellyfish, living aquatic beings belonging to groups like the plankton, diatoms, dinoflagellates, or radiolaria. These organisms appear as crosses, stars, triangles, saucers, cigars, and many other geometric shapes. Most of them are capable of photosynthesis. That is, they feed on light, water, and carbon dioxide. And the strange thing is that this is the only pattern that can explain all the bizarre behaviors recorded of flying saucers over time. These marine creatures have the ability to produce their own bioluminescence. Types such as radiolaria, cyanobacteria, and dinoflagellates glow on their own when they feel danger or when any foreign body approaches them. They glow in blue or turquoise green, the same colors of the lights that some pilots reported seeing when approaching certain celestial objects. Other creatures, like diatoms, have the property of fluorescence because they contain the pigment chlorophyll. If you shine a certain light on them, such as ultraviolet light used by aircraft, they reflect it in stunning shades of red, yellow, and orange. These creatures also have the property of iridescence, meaning that although they may appear transparent or dark under some conditions, their bodies, made of silica, if struck by sunlight or moonlight, refract the light like a glass prism, making the objects appear to glow in the colors of the rainbow.
On the 22nd of March, 1967, we were returning from Gibraltar to London. Quite suddenly, we were aware that ahead of us was a star which was at least twice as bright as the best of Sirius or Venus. All the while, it was changing color. It was very, very bright, iridescent colors. There were greens and blues, beautiful reds.
As the object moves, they turn dark or transparent again and disappear from sight. That's why pilots would see the celestial object in front of them. Then it suddenly vanishes. This property of iridescence very simply explains the strange event in the sky of Mexico in 2009, where the objects appeared in two different colors from two filming angles. Even the colors in which some flying saucers appear, giving the viewer the misleading impression that they are made of metal, like silver or gold, are actually natural for diatoms because the cell wall of a diatom is made of silicon oxide or silica, the same material in glass and certain rocks. And the diatom's shell has extremely fine nanogrooves and pores. When light strikes it from certain angles, it causes diffraction and makes the object appear a bright, shiny silver. As for the golden glow of some diatoms, that is sometimes due to the pigment fucoxanthin, which can dominate over the chlorophyll and give the diatom a naturally bright yellow or golden color. This is why some people are fooled when they see diatoms and think they are metallic saucers. These creatures, especially diatoms, can secrete a substance like cotton or white fluff called marine snow, which dissolves and decomposes quickly. It is the same substance found after sightings of celestial objects.
Several months later, I had the opportunity of covering a story for a magazine, Pageant magazine, a story, the locale of which was in San Fernando Valley. This had to do with a UFO sighting and a subsequent dropping of some very fine material, mysterious material if you will, which I like to call angel's hair because it resembled the angel's hair which we decorate our Christmas trees.
It is the same material that fell on the crowds in Florence, Italy, when celestial objects appeared over the Artemio Franchi Stadium in 1954. They called it Bambagia silicea, or angel hair. Even when they sent this substance to the lab at the University of Florence and analyzed it before it fully dissolved, they found it composed of chemical elements like calcium, magnesium, and boron, the same chemical elements that make up the marine snow secreted by diatoms. These marine organisms are masters of cloning. They can perform what is called binary fission as a type of reproduction, in which the organism divides into two identical ones, a perfect copy of itself, just like what we saw in some celestial objects.
Oh, what the hell? That is interesting right there. Wow. Wow.
And some of these organisms, like radiolaria, have the property of multiple fission. The nucleus inside the mother cell divides or releases dozens of smaller nuclei at once. These marine organisms also have the ability of fragmentation, meaning that if the organism is damaged or deliberately torn, the pieces that tear off or separate from it become living organisms themselves. Exactly what happened with the celestial object that was hit by a Hellfire missile off the coast of Yemen, from which smaller bodies separated and continued flying with it. Diatoms, when viewed under a microscope, sometimes show faint spheres, which are the reproductive nuclei, and sometimes bright spheres, which are the chloroplasts that capture inside them the sunlight used in photosynthesis. That's why in many sightings of celestial objects, especially the long or cigar-shaped ones, witnesses describe with great clarity and precision glowing bright spheres inside the celestial object.
So we were all wondering what this was. There was the cigar shape, and within that cigar shape you could see the sort of four lights.
Many people claiming this is what? It's big, huh? It's really big.
これが木下氏が予想する光の正体。機体の下からオレンジ色の光を出し、その場に留まり続ける UFO。大きさはおよそ150メートルはあるという。
It also stores its food inside its body as oil droplets. That's why, in some encounters between pilots and celestial objects, when the pilot lands the plane, they find oil stains on it.
Between Iwo and Iwo Jima, what I recall to be 3 unidentified balls of light. And this was from the left-hand side of the plane, looking forward. Usual occurrences within the craft. Now, when I got off the airplane, I noticed oil had splashed all over the side of the craft from the left engine.
For these marine organisms, such as diatoms and others, water represents more than 90 to 98% of their bodies. They need to absorb water continuously and in large quantities because it is their source of nourishment. Therefore, their giant diatom counterparts that come from the sky can precisely locate water sources, stay near them, and sometimes land on farmland rich in water. They exploit their enormous weight, which can reach 60 to 100 tons. If a diatom were the size of a big bus, and 95% of it was water, that would be its weight. Then it can suck water by osmotic pressure from the soil and dry it completely.
I saw this enormous light, and I stood there, and it must have been 5 to 6 minutes. My legs were like a half-set jelly. I was so scared. It is dead, the grass is dead, and on the circles there's nothing growing.
It was a huge chrome, very shiny object in the shape of a ball. At the bottom of the ball was a number of huge white lights. This object looked like it was sucking up water.
All of a sudden I saw these lights come out of the water like a cylinder and flash, and the top of the water was all lit up. And as that light was up, I could hear the rushing of water, movement of water, and then the water being raised up, and then shortly after, down comes the water on top of the lake.
Marine organisms such as dinoflagellates, diatoms, and cyanobacteria are capable of secreting powerful neurotoxins like saxitoxin and domoic acid, which affect the human nervous system, causing numbness and tingling in the limbs, and sometimes complete paralysis. If the amount of toxins increases, they can cause severe convulsions leading to rapid death due to respiratory failure. Some of the toxins secreted by dinoflagellates are called Pfiesteria toxins, and these Pfiesteria toxins cause redness and burns of human skin, burning tissue and killing skin cells. The wound and its pain feel like needle pricks, and the victim feels as if their blood has been sucked from the point of injury. From here, we can clearly understand what happened in Colares, Brazil, in 1977. The cases of paralysis, burns, and injuries like needle pricks and blood being drained. And by the way, this marine organism that secretes the Pfiesteria toxin, which causes burns and needle-like pain, is called Pfiesteria piscicida, like the one you see here when it glows. It looks like a sphere convex from above. Strangely, in the Colares photos, we find celestial flying objects of the same shape, glowing balls convex from above. According to testimonies and hospital reports, these spheres were the ones that caused the victims the severe burns similar to needle pricks. This marine organism, Pfiesteria piscicida, appears under the microscope without luminescence, like a burger sandwich. And strangely, we also find sightings of the same shape in other places and times, such as pilots of OTA Air Base in Portugal in 1982.
Imagine-se um hambúrguer, era exatamente isso. Ou seja, era uma coisa, eram duas calotes. Imagine-se um hambúrguer, imagine-se um hambúrguer.
Among the toxins secreted by these marine organisms are domoic acid and ciguatoxins. These toxins cause intense auditory and visual hallucinations in humans and may cause temporary memory loss. These are the same symptoms described by many who had encounters with celestial objects around the world. Some of them lost their memory for 2 hours or even 5 full hours in what is known as the phenomenon of missing time, associated with sightings of flying saucers. Many of them experienced intense hallucinations and imagined various alien beings coming aboard these saucers to experiment on them or take samples. Strangely, the marine organisms that secrete these toxins, like Gambir discus, have forms like the ones you see in front of you now, and if you notice, you'll find they are the same shapes that were photographed and described in Colares: spherical or egg-shaped objects, and an object like an American football, exactly as Captain Uirange Hollanda described it. Moreover, if we examine some of the celestial object photos taken in Colares closely, we can identify another distinct marine organism, the famous oval shape with undefined edges that we mentioned earlier as one of the fastest unknown celestial objects traveling through our atmosphere. This organism is an exact copy of the paramecium, the microscopic marine organism that moves in water at remarkable speed and whose entire body surface is covered with cilia. That's why, in one of the Colares photos, this object appears with very clear fringe-like edges, because in reality, it is nothing but a giant paramecium. Hallucination, in its scientific essence, is merely a projection of an individual's cultural and imaginative reservoir onto reality. Until the early 1960s, Before the media standardized a unified archetype for alien forms, humans experienced hallucinations in a purely personalized manner when exposed to the neurotoxins emitted by these entities. Once the neurotoxins begin to paralyze cognitive centers, the human brain starts weaving defensive imagery to fill the gaps in consciousness. Some perceived humanoids in silver suits, others saw robots, while others witnessed grotesque forms that bore no resemblance to known models. This personalized hallucination explains why each witness in a single incident often describes the entities in completely contradictory terms.
And it had something, it came out to a point about where a nose would be, and on each side the ears. And I believe that they looked like they were a little longer on the ears than the nose. But still pointed the ears. They were still pointing, yes. But it seemed to me when they came out that doorway, or that opening or whatever it was, then just almost instantly they were right there on us. And their arms, they had arms, and I saw the arms moving here and in the shoulders. But they had webbed, I mean, their fingers were webbed, and then they had something like a thumb, and they were like this.
I was just sitting there really motionless. I couldn't move. I may have even had my mouth open. I don't remember, being probably scared. This hatch came open. And this light came out of the hatch, and this form came down and looked the form of a human being. And this form started walking.
As soon as I had stopped, there was a door opened in the side of this vehicle, and this man stepped out and came directly to me. A shiny material, it was a glassy outfit, like it was metallic, I suppose you would call it.
What were these, what did he look like?
He looked perfectly natural and normal as any human being. He had... his face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but it was just like he had been out in the sun a lot and had a good tan. His hair was combed straight back, and it was a dark brown. And his eyebrows, his face, his features were very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different from any other man that we'd meet on the street.
Green faces, as I saw, and hands, green gloves, that is, gloves are such a body. Well, I don't notice it. And on the fingers there were these thin, tiny little fins. They were dressed in dark black collarpine suits. There was no shoe, you see. They were very interested in this belt. Oh, I'll show you. They took it in their hands, looked at it. All four of them came close, put it on, fastened it, looked at it. But I don't know what they were admiring there.
And at about 300 meters, there was a huge UFO. I continued walking, and at about 40 to 50 meters to the right of the UFO, there seemed to be an enormous robot figure. It had 3 legs with 4 arms, and it seemed to be working outside of the object. I saw a figure with a glass helmet on. The eyes were like a cat's eyes, emerald green and white. Its nose was also cat-like. It had a finely drawn mouth. The skin was olive-colored and flawless. Its head suggested rubber and was completely unwrinkled. He came towards me. Telepathically, he asked me where I came from.
un verde chiaro, oliva chiaro, chiaro, chiaro. E quando muovevo la testa così.
The most prominent example is the Barney and Betty Hill case. Despite being exposed to the same celestial body, Betty described the beings as friendly-featured humans, while Barney saw them as terrifying reptilians. The turning point was what Barney's treating psychiatrist discovered. The precise and harrowing description his patient provided was nothing more than an involuntary recall of a creature featured in an episode of the science fiction series, The Outer Limits, which Barney had watched just days before the incident. Similarly, in the 1994 aerial school incident in Zimbabwe, every child described the aliens in a way that differed entirely from one another. This sharp divergence confirms that these witnesses encountered a toxic biological emission that forced their brains to project their stored fears and imagery onto the celestial entity hovering on the horizon. While the world searched for nuclear fuel or ionic propulsion behind the scenes of these objects, the truth lay in the chemistry of primitive life. Science tells us that diatoms are not merely microscopic organisms, but masterful biochemical factories at extracting energy. Through a process known as urea hydrolysis, these entities utilize the enzyme urease to break down nitrogen, resulting in pungent emissions of ammonia gas. Furthermore, these organisms synthesize a compound called DMSP, a biological shield used to protect their cells from solar radiation. When enzymes break down this compound, dimethyl sulfide is released in massive concentrations, the very gas responsible for the refreshing scent of the ocean, but which in the case of these gargantuan entities transforms into a suffocating sulfuric stench. This precisely explains the secret behind that repulsive blend of ammonia and sulfur, reaching the scent of rotten eggs caused by the emission of hydrogen sulfide from the decomposition of their organic proteins, a detail reported by most witnesses. In reality, they were not describing the exhaust of a spacecraft, but were inhaling the metabolic signature of biological beings conducting their vital processes in our skies. This gaseous envelope acts as a carrier for neurotoxins that infiltrate the witness's lungs, triggering the moment of detachment from reality and blurring the fine line between certainty and hallucination. Furthermore, the physical construction of the diatom structure is not merely a microscopic biological miracle. It provides the key to solving one of the greatest mysteries in the history of unidentified flying objects. The secret to understanding what investigators have failed to grasp for decades lies in a single substance: ultra-pure silica. Diatom structures are not ordinary biological matter. They are natural glass shields composed of silicon dioxide, woven with a microscopic precision that surpasses human technology. This unique composition finally provides a startlingly accurate explanation for what occurred in Roswell.
We found a piece of metal about a 1.5 to 2 feet wide and about 2 or 3 feet long. Felt like you had nothing in your hands. It wasn't any thicker than the foil out of a pack of cigarettes. But the thing about it that got me is that you couldn't even bend it, you couldn't dead it. Even with a sledgehammer would bounce off of it. So I knew that I had never seen anything like that before. And as of now, I don't know what it was. It was not anything from this earth that I'm quite sure of. Because I was, being an intelligence officer, I was familiar with just about all materials used in aircraft and in our air travel. This is nothing like that. It could not be. It could not have been.
Well, the most unusual part of this whole thing was what was on the I-beam, on the inner surface of the I-beam. Because as you look at it head on, there appeared to be a type of writing on the mainframe itself.
The strangest part of that was there was some writing or some sort of a writing along the inside surface of this. When I first saw that, I thought, this looks like Egyptian hieroglyphics. But closer inspection, it was not hieroglyphics. It's more like geometric symbols, like oblate spheroids, triangles, truncated triangles, various shapes along the inside surface.
In 1947, when Marcel described that bright, extremely lightweight foil that was impossible to tear and always returned to its original shape, he was effectively describing the characteristics of the silicate frustule. These structures, engineered in intricate fine networks, grant the entity extreme lightness combined with exceptional mechanical strength and heat resistance that exceeds conventional metals. The secret behind the material's flexibility and its ability to return to its original shape memory, lies in the presence of polymeric organic materials mixed with the silica. While the silica provides non-combustible rigidity, the organic polymers provide the remarkable flexibility that perplexed Marcel. Crucially, the material's inability to burn or melt is the hallmark property of silicate compounds, proving that the debris was a unique biological structure. As for the lightweight wood-like beams Marcel described, they represent the internal structural supports, truss supports, required to withstand the immense stresses of cosmic travel. Since the outer shell is made of silica, these internal supports also consist of ultra-pure silica mixed with residues of charred carbon. Even the inscriptions found on the Roswell wreckage, described by Jesse Marcel and his son as hieroglyphic-like symbols, are in fact the fractal geometry of the diatom's biological structure. Under a microscope, diatoms reveal intricate, porous, and geometric patterns that appear as organized scripts or codes. Here, nature reveals itself as the supreme architect, crafting the codes of life into miraculous geometric forms. The object that crashed in Roswell was not a piece of automated technology. It was a gargantuan biological shell that had disintegrated, leaving behind material evidence that fully aligns with the physical and chemical properties expected of a giant diatom. The unique characteristics of the diatom's silicate structures recovered from the debris provided the United States with an unprecedented technological advantage, sparking the so-called communications leap and the establishment of Silicon Valley just months after the incident. This was no mere stroke of luck. It was a sophisticated process of biological reverse engineering of a cosmic secret. These biological structures provided American scientists with the ultra-pure silicon samples necessary for semiconductor manufacturing, alongside an invaluable nanoscale design blueprint. The fractal geometry etched onto the wreckage revealed to engineers, working in absolute secrecy, how to arrange silicon on a microscopic scale to maximize surface area and conductive efficiency, the very principle upon which the transistor and integrated circuit revolution was founded. This nanoscale science launched the leap that led to the invention of the transistor at Bell Labs in December 1947, a mere 5 months after Roswell. Furthermore, the material's flexibility and shape memory, derived from the fusion of silica with organic polymers, proved the feasibility of developing highly reliable materials for sensitive military communications. With the discovery of these revolutionary properties, an urgent need arose for a specialized hub for secret research and manufacturing, leading to the localization of this technology in California. Thus, Silicon Valley became a global epicenter because it was built upon ultra-secret technology held exclusively by the United States, technology derived from the silicate biological structure of the crashed giant diatom. Following this same pattern, we can explain many sightings of celestial objects, no matter how strange. Like the drawing before you now, depicting a phenomenon that occurred in the 17th century, probably in the city of Stralsund, then part of Sweden, where a group of herring fishermen saw strange celestial objects above the sea, including these 2 giant bodies. These objects may seem completely unfamiliar compared to the flying saucers we know, but they will look familiar to marine biologists because they are among the radiolaria forms recorded by the famous scientist Ernst Haeckel in the 19th century as part of his great catalog of microscopic marine organisms. Thus, we can understand that the snakes of the sky that glow are not real snakes, but a giant colony of cyanobacteria. You'll notice that in sightings of these sky snakes, they have no head. Rather, the entire body is a regular formation of rectangles or squares. And because these snakes, or bacteria, are essentially marine creatures, they may sometimes visit Earth's seas and then rise back to the sky. This is why ancient legends spread about giant serpents that the angels pull from the sea to the sky so they do not harm humans and imprison them in hell. In this way, we can understand, in the Artemio Franchi incident in Italy in 1954, why people saw celestial objects in the shape of mantarin hats. Similarly, we can understand what happened in the famous Kecksburg incident in 1965 and know why witnesses in the US and Canada saw a celestial object shaped like an acorn, because in reality, they saw a marine organism from the ciliate plankton, Cytherocylus. In the same vein, we can take a fresh look at the famous Nuremberg celestial phenomenon of 1561 and understand why the sky had arcs, crosses, and cigar shapes that contained spheres, and separate spheres glowing in different colors. And we can understand why, when the spheres fell to the earth, people saw smoke coming from them, because in reality, it was water vapor resulting from the decomposition of a giant diatom, and why some old drawings and historical texts record sightings of what look like wine jars or water pitchers, like the celestial body mentioned by Pliny the Elder in his book Natural History in 76 AD. He said its color was like molten silver. In the same way, we can understand that the objects that were observed changing their shape while moving are a type of radiolaria that surround themselves with a sheath called a capsule, a jelly of cytoplasm that looks foamy, like soap bubbles. The organism uses these cytoplasmic bubbles to move. When it wants to rise upwards, it fills the bubbles with air, and when it wants to descend or dive, it shrinks these bubbles by pulling the air out of them. That is why this foamy layer around the organism seems to change instantly while it is moving. You will even notice that when the US military filmed such an object with thermal imaging in the video we showed, they were able to observe the nucleus of the organism inside the cytoplasmic bubbles. We previously mentioned that among the unknown celestial objects reported, there is an oval body similar to the paramecium, but its counterpart is also a microscopic marine organism called euglena, which moves at almost the same speed as paramecium in water, but does not have cilia like it. Instead, it has a flagellum, like a whip, that it flicks from behind, so it moves quickly. Strangely, we have a case of a mysterious celestial object sighted in the state of Michigan in 1966, where one of the witnesses saw the flying object up close and drew with great accuracy a body very similar to euglena.
No, it moved very rapidly at any speed, or rather any direction it wanted to go. Why, it could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Era como se fosse, e mais ou menos do tamanho de um tambor de óleo de 200 litros. Essa sonda voava com um voo irregular, ela não tinha um voo seguro, ela voava como se estivesse balançando. E emitia luz. E às vezes andava uma ou duas juntas.
"50 feet long, and it made no noise. It was completely silent."
And multi-rayed shapes.
I turned right onto the A5 and immediately saw a brilliant red light on the left-hand side above the road and a brilliant green light on the other side. My thoughts were that it was an aircraft which was going to zoom over my head and crash. But the other traffic went slowly, I went slowly at the same pace as them because it was a busy road, and I realised soon that this These two lights were attached to a grey dumbbell-shaped object.
And then these lights were coming towards me, and as it come towards me and it took shape, it was a triangle, a big huge triangle with the lights all the way around the edge, and it went over my flat, and it ended up me out of my flat window with my mobile phone trying to get a photograph of the thing.
Were the lights just along the sides, or were they on the corners? Just
I'd say no more than 8 on each side.
Right, okay.
I think there were fewer on the back side of it. And there was one red one in the centre.
One red one in the centre.
We observed it over 1 minute on the left of our plane, surprisingly totally stationary in the sky, and it disappeared progressively.
I really didn't know anything about UFOs before this incident. I thought they were most unlikely, and I didn't really believe in people who said they'd seen them until I saw one myself.
Sam and Alice followed the object to Lake Tapan, where it hovered in one position high over the water. Sam made this sketch of a UFO covered with flashing lights.
In May 1978, Tim and Janet Cullen were driving home from Denver when a bright light appeared on the horizon.
Wow, look at that.
Suddenly, an unidentified flying object hovered right in their path.
It was large and cylinder-shaped and had multiple lights. It wasn't a helicopter and it wasn't an airplane. It wasn't anything I'd ever seen before.
All I saw really was this brilliant yellow object with this dark band. And at the edges of the dark band was this very sparkling light between the dark and the yellow. It was the second one.
Well, very conveniently, Captain, we've got a nice blackboard here. Do you think you could illustrate this phenomenon for us? Could you show us what it looked like, very roughly? And these objects appeared something like this. The large object appeared at times to be something like that, with the smaller objects in relation to it, something like this.
The pilot then points his camera phone out of the cockpit window, and watch this as he zooms in. A metallic-looking object, a polyhedron of some sort, whizzes by in a straight line. We slow it down and zoom in further. You can see it kind of looks like a cube.
All these strange forms that appear in old and modern flying saucer reports are nothing more than giant marine microorganisms with biological tricks of reproduction, luminescence, iridescent reflections, and light diffraction. And for this reason, no clear images are ever presented of any body that suddenly enters our solar system and into the range of observation. The images of the object are completely hidden under any pretext, as happened with Oumuamua or Three-Eye Atlas, or they settle for photographing it from afar as a glowing point of different colors. And these objects always move and accelerate with an intelligent self-willed motion, glowing in the colors of chlorophyll, and avoiding collisions with any bodies in our solar system. Clear and explicit images of these objects that pass near Earth are never presented, even while, at the same time, high-quality photos of deep space and the edges of the galaxy are presented.
I was really disappointed by the quality of the image because it's smeared by the jitter and the motion of the camera, so we can't really see much better than before. So altogether, there was little news. And that's what I was worried about. After a long delay of 45 days, we didn't learn much more. Were far more informative. And they are the instruments that took them cost thousands of dollars, not $1 billion like the NASA instruments.
The point of this episode is to grasp that these marine organisms, despite their enormous size relative to us, are by nature creatures that live on the surface of the sea, not in its depths. This does not match the seas of Earth, where the giant creatures live in the depths, not on the surface. So the question remains, where do these objects come from?